number, so it does not simplify. If I look for the Dorito chip, I'm not looking inside the square root, I'm looking at the number here, which is actually a 1, right? So if I look at those three numbers, it cannot be reduced. So this would be our final solution set. 3 plus or minus the square root of 17 over 2. All right, just a couple more for you. I know this video is long. Tomorrow's will be much shorter, but the quadratic formula is probably, I'd say, one of the more important things we're going to do. I'd say it's, well, probably the most important thing we're doing, to be honest, to prepare you for IM3, in my opinion anyway. So it does take a little bit longer, and we do want to make sure that you are very good at it. So here's 2 more examples, and then we'll have 1 more checkpoint for you. So x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals 0. That's good, equals 0. A is 1, B is negative 8, C is 16. Plug it into our quadratic formula. X equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root b squared. Hey, b squared, Brent Burkett, he calls himself that. What's up, Mr. Burkett? Minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. X equals negative is a positive 8, plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared, which is a positive 64, minus 4 times 1 times 16, which is also 64, over 2. This one's a little bit more unique, and we'll explain why in a second. We get x equals 8 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 2. So we know that with quadratics you can get 2 solutions, right, which is what we get the most often. You can also get no real solution, like we did on that problem a couple minutes ago. But then it's also possible to just have 1 solution. And the way you get 1 solution is if your square root is 0. Because now as I go through and solve it, I get 8 plus or minus 0, right? Because square root of 0 is 0, divided by 2. And then when I divide this into my 2 separate answers, I have 8 plus 0 over 2 and 8 minus 0 over 2. But you probably noticed 8 plus 0 is 8, and 8 minus 0 is 8. So these are actually the exact same solution. If we do 8 divided by 2, we get x equals 4. And on this one, if we do 8 divided by 2, we also get x equals 4. So since both of them are the exact same number, we really only have 1 solution. So again, key point, if your square root is 0, you only get 1 solution. In this case, x equaled 4. All right, last example from me. We need it equal to 0, so we're going to go ahead and add the 1 to both sides. 3x squared minus 5x plus 1 equals 0. Again, I put the 1 in the back because it's my c value. There was no variable attached to it. Write out the quadratic formula. Sorry, before we do that, identify A, B, C. A equals 3, B equals negative 5, C equals 1. Plug it into the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I always recommend writing down A, B, C. Some people like to skip that step, but if you write it down, just having it visually is going to help you. And then continuing to simplify, x equals 2 negatives make a positive, so positive 5, plus or minus the square root of negative 5 times negative 5, which, as we said earlier, will always be a positive in this spot, so positive 25, minus 4 times 3 times 1, that's going to be minus 12, over 2 times 3, which is 6, and this will simplify to x equals 5 plus or minus square root of 13 over 6. Try to simplify the square root of 16, or sorry, square root of 13. We can't, so we leave it as square root of 13. I look for my Dorito chip. but this is a 1 right here, so we can't reduce it at all. So this is our final solution. All right, checkpoint. Go ahead and give this one a shot. Let's see how you do. Okay, hopefully you did all right. First thing we had to do was set it equal to 0. So subtract 4 on both sides. Then we identify our A, B, and C. Then we plug it into the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over, make sure you put it all the way across, 2 times a, 2 times 3. X equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4. We have 2 negatives, so it's going to be plus. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 4 is 48. All over 2 times 3, which is 6. X equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 52 over 6. Then we simplify the square root. Ay caramba, look at all this work we're doing. This is amazing. Square root of 52, 2 times 26, 2 times 13. 13 is a prime number, circle that, and that becomes 2 root 13. So we've got x equals negative 2 plus or minus, and we said this simplifies to 2 root 13 over 6. And if you stop there, you did a great job, but one more step. This time, if we do our little Dorito chip, we do have a common factor. So we can divide each of these 3 terms, we can divide them by 2, and we end up getting x equals negative 1 plus or minus 1 square root of 13 over 3. All right, hope you did okay. I told you that was our last problem, but we're not really done, because you know I couldn't leave you without the quadratic formula song again. So I'll skip ahead to the best part.
X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
See you tomorrow, Titans.